Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Extra Blue. I am your host, Elena Soneson, and I am happy to have you here today. I am editing this episode today from Steamboat Springs, Colorado, where I am currently training with Team Berkey at our summer altitude camp. It's been a great first week here at 7,000 feet, and I am looking forward to another big week of training with the team in the beautiful Rocky Mountains. This episode was recorded about a week ago, just before I departed the Midwest for training camp. This podcast is powered by Gear West, a specialty sports campus which has supported and inspired me for years. If you're near Minneapolis, their incredible 25,000 square foot store is just about 5 minutes west of Ridgedale and offers the largest Nordic selection in the country. And no matter where you are, their website is a fantastic resource for learning, motivation, and the gear. Everything you need to chase your goals in Nordic and alpine skiing, biking, running, and all kinds of cross training. Check out gearwest.com. I'm super grateful to have their support. On this episode of Extra Blue, I welcome World Cup skier Gus Schumacher, along with his wax technician, Chris Hecker. I previously interviewed Gus on Extra Blue back in 2022, and at the time, Gus was just my third guest on the podcast. During that episode, we were able to dive into his history as a skier growing up in Anchorage, Alaska, and how he made his way onto the World Cup circuit. If you are interested in learning more about Gus and his background as an athlete, I definitely recommend going back and listening to episode 4 of Extra Blue. Now, in this episode today, we get into the nitty-gritty of Gus's ski fleet and how Chris Hecker supports him throughout the World Cup season. Chris manages his fleet, he tests the skis constantly, he is prepping them for race day, and ultimately, he is working with Gus to pick out the best ski, grind, and wax for each race. When Chris is not working as a World Cup wax technician for the U.S. ski team, he lives in Hayward, Wisconsin with his wife and works at New Moon Ski and Bike Shop. He spends his summers biking through the North Woods of Wisconsin, and sometimes I can even get him to go for a run or a roller ski with me when I'm in town. More on that later in this episode. For now, I hope you enjoy this deep dive into what it's like to wax and manage a fleet of skis for a World Cup athlete. Okay, Checkers and Gus, welcome to the Extra Blue podcast. Chris, I don't know if I'm going to be able to call you Chris during this podcast. Most people go by the Chris Hecker combination to get Checkers. So for anyone who has not met Chris Hecker before, they can, I guess, get to know you a little bit better by that little nickname that we've got. But I'm just really excited to have both of you on this podcast. And we'll start off with Gus. I want to check in. Where are you in the world right now? And what have you been up to today for training or other ski-related things?
I'm at home in Anchorage, and today I did some track, like leg speed intervals, kind of, with some of the boys. 2 sets of 4x4 and 2x2. That was fun. Haven't really done much track in the last few years. We used to do it with Winter Stars pretty often, actually, but yeah, I've left that. I guess more of my intensity is ski specific these days, which is good, but yeah, it's fun to switch it up. I also did a mountain bike race on Wednesday, so I've been doing some alternative,
Nice.
some cross training this week.
Yeah, that's fun. What inspired the track intervals?
They're actually like on the plan, the APU plan for recovery weeks pretty much every week. And so I don't know, there's kind of a tendency towards them, and yeah, it's fun to do every once in a while.
Yeah, very fun. Well, it sounds like you would be ready to jump into the American Birkebeiner Lumberjack 5K that is happening tomorrow. And I believe I have convinced Checkers to join me. So, Checkers, where are you in the world right now? What did you get up to this morning? And are you ready for this 5K tomorrow?
I am in Hayward, Wisconsin, home of the Berkey. I have been resting my legs all day doing nothing to get prepared for this 5K, and it'll be my first run in I don't know, 8 months. So I'm ready, fully rested,
Oh,
been
wow.
tapering for a little while. We're gonna just go out there and hang
Okay.
on for dear life. But no, in the summertime, I have been kind of following the bike circuit, the gravel bike circuit around with Canyon bikes and with Rex bike wax. So a chain waxing company, and yeah, just been having fun teching and working on bikes and kind of traveling around as well as teching with the US ski team. So we had about a week long camp in Bend, Oregon with the team, as well as like a 12-day camp out to Sonnefjell, Norway on the glacier there. So we were doing a lot of wax testing, ski testing between the months of May and June. And then we do some further planning for Ramsau in the end of September, early October time period for another week-long glacier testing camp.
Awesome. I have a lot of questions for you about the testing camps that have kind of been happening so far this year. And I kind of want to give a little background information for listeners is that one thing that the US ski team really highlighted kind of in reflection from this past season was that as a nation, as a team, an area that we could improve on is our performance in some of those slushier conditions. So when it gets to be warm in Central Europe or it's March and the sun all of a sudden has a lot more of an effect on that snow, it is challenging for us as a team to put together great of performances. And doesn't mean it can't happen. It certainly can, and it has happened before, but it's for sure an area that we could improve on. And so that's kind of how I believe the team has been, or I should say, why the team has been highlighting some of these technician testing camps this summer. And I can only assume that that's one of the reasons behind the Glacier camp up in Alaska that just happened. So I want to talk to you both about that. And so, Gus, what does a day on a glacier camp look like for you? Mid-June, mid-July, everyone else is sweating down below, roller skiing or running, and you're up high on a glacier skiing in the middle of the summer. What does that look like?
It's two skis a day, which actually, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem that crazy when you're up there for a week, but when you actually get up there, I don't know, it's a lot of skiing and it's slow skiing, high resistance, like it's pretty heavy,
Mm-hmm.
which is super good. And it's also like it's pretty soft. The mornings tend to be pretty nice for a bit and then it'll slowly break. So it's a lot like our spring skiing in, yeah, on the World Cup. Except for, there's no bottom really, so the poles just keep going. But yeah, it's great practice and it's nice to spend a bunch of time training doing it. Like, we get the practice in the spring with those soft conditions, but it's kind of in race mode, so you don't really have a lot of time to just like get your reps in. And so, yeah, it's nice to just skate in the morning, classic in the afternoon, and get pretty tired, but spend a lot of time doing like super productive training, it feels like.
Yeah, I think that's one really important detail is that even though we might be racing in these slushy conditions, oftentimes we haven't had that much of an opportunity to train in those slushy conditions because by the time the conditions do get kind of slushy, we're not necessarily out training for very many hours in the middle of the season. And it's usually towards the end of our season where we're either trying to peak or we are trying to hang on and make sure that we are still prepped for those races. So there isn't that much time to do, like slush training or slush testing. So when you are out on the glacier, what are you doing to kind of emphasize that? Or are you doing any specific drills like no pole skiing or trying to play around with different techniques while you're out on the glacier to try to figure out what the most efficient way is to ski through some of that slow snow?
Uh, I mean, honestly, for me, the biggest thing is like skiing with people. Uh, just kind of like seeing, because then you can like have a gauge. I don't know, it's like having a pace light on a track or something. You can gauge like how hard or easy it is, like to keep up with them. And from there, you can kind of play with like how you use your body weight, how you're like shifting things, where you put your power, because in soft snow, like you kind of have to flow and just be gentle in a way, and like almost like the gentler you are, it's always a little bit different. But I found that like yeah, I don't know. We don't do a lot of specific drills and stuff. We talk about how we ski, and then we kind of apply it, and talk about ideas, what feels good and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's like what feels good, what feels like you're moving fast with minimal effort. And a lot of the time that is just like trying less hard and just trying to like flow. I don't know. I try to think just like, yeah, being gentle, and it's like almost more like dancing. Like you have to be really fluid and smooth, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, and so I have to imagine also if you're up on a glacier, there is this moment in the morning when it's frozen snow, right? Because I'm assuming it's getting down to freezing temps. And so it's super hard packed, and then there's a moment where it breaks and it turns to slush. And so are you going back and forth between skating in the morning and classic in the afternoon? Like, how do you kind of navigate that? If you're classic skiing in the morning, like, how do you navigate the break in the snow? So you've got to go change your kick wax. Like, what does that look like at a detailed level?
Yeah, it doesn't uh really actually freeze that hard in July. Like
Okay.
it can get below freezing, but like I don't know, when we were up there it was cloudy the whole time. And
Mhm.
if I'm just gonna assume people don't really know much about like the snow mechanics, but when it's clear, the radiant heat that's trapped in the snow during the day escapes. And so like all that whatever, the heat from the snow leaves and the moisture is able to evaporate and the snow is able to freeze pretty well, even if it's not, if the air temperature isn't freezing, especially if it's not windy. That's how like crust forms. Like you can get crust days when it's drops to even up to 40 maybe. I don't know. I don't usually see that. I get that high, but as long as it's clear, that's and calm, the snow freezes itself. It's kind of like how salt works actually for our like when they salt the course in the spring. It's a similar mechanism, and you'll notice like the salt doesn't work quite as well when it's raining or cloudy, because what it's doing is like removing moisture from the snow so it can freeze itself better. Uh, so yeah, it was cloudy and not really freezing. So it would be like firmer in the morning, but after we ski a few laps, it doesn't like break like it would when it freezes hard and then it
Yeah.
gets sunny like in Bend. That's where most people's experience with that is, I think, because it really
Yeah.
does break super hard and super fast because that sun is powerful.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. We don't like it doesn't get crazy, crazy. Like I don't know. When we were up there, it wasn't insanely soft, and there were some spots that get really soft, but people are skiing it, so you're able to ski in their tracks. And uh, we don't skate in the afternoon. I think that would be pretty heinous. Uh,
Okay.
and then yeah, we had a day where we classic skied in the morning, and even still, like your poles go through, and that's kind of the biggest thing. The tracks don't get crazy soft because they're just getting packed down and packed down. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah, the poling is the biggest thing. That's just like horrible. So you need good
yeah.
kick up there.
Yeah. So you almost have to like not use your upper body as much. You have to like finesse it in a way.
For, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And when you're skiing on the glacier specifically, are you using race skis, or are you using rock skis, or what kind of in between? What are the conditions like?
I have some old race skis. Yeah, I mean, there's not rocks
Yeah.
because yeah, I don't know. It's a glacier. There's some sediment, I guess, that blows in, so like the snow isn't perfectly clean. But uh, yeah, I try to use the best skis I can have. And for classic, it really helps to have like super soft skis with a low camber because the the snow kind of just shears really easily, so you don't have much of a surface to push off of. It's not like hard icy cluster days where you want a tall ski with lots of cluster that you can just hammer on.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, just like super wet skis, a lot of structure, that type of stuff is very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, checkers, I want to switch gears now and get your perspective on the summer testing or training camps on snow. So you mentioned previously that you had gone over to Norway already to do an on snow testing camp. I believe you were in Bend as well, and you're heading to Ramsau in probably a month or two. So, um, what does a testing camp like that look like in the eyes of a wax technician? Like, what are you guys doing on a day-to-day basis? Take us through a day in the life.
Yeah, well, the three different camps have three radically different goals. The first one in Bend was really to highlight two things. One was to help athletes in wet, soft, broken down conditions and our waxing abilities for that. So, i.e., working with athletes in clister conditions, and making sure that we are applying the right amount of clister to the skis in those really soft conditions, as well as picking the right skis in those soft conditions. So it can be really difficult to kind of pick the right ski of the quiver when we only have maybe 3 or 4 days a season in the winter time in those conditions. So we're trying to give ourselves more time in those really soft conditions outside of a racing atmosphere to test skis and to be with athletes. And from the tech side of things, it's really helpful to have some of these lower stress weeks and weekends with athletes so that we can really dive deep into someone's quiver or fleet of skis and figure out, okay, this is a really safe option for the soft conditions rather than what we're currently experiencing is those really high stress situations of, let's say, Trondheim, which was our first like true wet condition of the entire season. And we're like, all right, cool, let's grab these skis out for the first time in 9 months and kind of start piecing things together. So we're trying to get a much bigger step forward. And that first step forward was in Bend. So working with athletes and kind of
Mhm.
being in a low stress environment in soft conditions was the main goal of that camp. A secondary goal for us there was to focus on structure and to focus on different superficial hand structures to go on to the base of a ski. So to keep it simple, we put different patterns onto the ski to make them fast in more wet, sloppy conditions. The second camp that we have for this year that we've already been at, was Trondheim, Norway. So that was a pretty extensive camp focused on grinding and on some of the wax products. So we kind of got away a little bit from the skis as a primary testing product, and we shifted to more of the grinding side of things and to the wax product side of things because there's so many things to test and so little time. We really want to make sure that these camps are really highly focused and we get a lot of good in-depth information in those key areas. The third camp coming up, which is Ramsau, that'll be in the early fall. That's going to be another focus on the grinding program, as well as our secondary goal is to get through some of the brand new athlete skis from the factories. So we will go to each one of the factories like Altenmarkt in for Solomon. We'll get in touch with Razi and have them send some skis to us. We'll go to Reed, which is the Fisher factory. We'll visit Atomic as well and kind of go through some of those brands and pick through some of the skis that we think might be good for the coming season, and then get those on snow on the Ramsau Glacier. So kind of a really highly focused set of camps that we have. And unfortunately, we can't test everything every single camp, but we really want to go dive deep into some of those crucial aspects of teching.
Yeah. And I think one thing to highlight is just comparing kind of the US team's process of preparing the technicians for the season. In the past, these camps have not necessarily been part of the program. When other countries, specifically the European countries, all it takes for the Scandinavians is they just drive 4 to 6 hours north and they can test on a fjord up in northern Norway in June and test all of the waxes or grinds or skis in the slush. Or if they're in Central Europe, they can go into one of the ski tunnels or up onto Ramsau Glacier. And, it's a 3 to 6 hour drive or maybe a quick little flight, that just like a city hopper that they can hop on to go get there. And it's something that these other countries have already been doing for many years now. And the US, it's not as easy to just hop on over to Europe in the middle of July to go test your skis. And it's also not as accessible, to get all of our technicians over and working in the middle of the summer, because most of the wax technicians are seasonal workers, or if they have some sort of full-time job with the US ski team, then in the spring, summer, and fall, that full-time job is consumed by other duties not related to wax teching. So I'm thinking of someone like Jason Cork, who is a wax tech and he's a full-time US employee, but he's also in charge of coaching and other development and other planning in the summer. So he can't necessarily just dedicate the month of June to go to Norway. So it is something that I feel like the US is working on kind of catching up to speed with these other countries on. And I feel like, I'm hoping that these camps will be beneficial for that. But I don't know, Checkers, what do you think? Do you feel like they have been super productive camps? Do you feel like we still have a ways to go? How are we doing?
Yeah, I think the best example of how good these camps are for us, and I am a firm believer in trying to get to these, is the first year we had the floral ban, which would have been about 2 years ago. We had this same camp in Trondheim, and we came out those first period of skiing, and we, as techs, we kind of nailed it for the first 5 weekends there. We had several podiums, several people up there in different disciplines. We had JC get his first podium in Ostersund. We had Rosie and Jesse on the podium in Ruka that year. It was just across the board, it was great for us to be able to have some time in the summer, which we normally don't, to get some more testing time underneath us with a lot of the new skis, with a lot of the new waxes. It's been super helpful to have some extra time in a low stress environment of non-racing, non-ski prep side of things to really just methodically test through stuff. So I'm a firm believer in that these camps are helping us because we're learning a lot every time we get something on snow. And with the industry, especially from my side of things, with the glide waxes, we have anywhere between 50 and 75 new waxes a year. One of those could be the silver bullet. That could be the best wax of the best wax for certain conditions. And if you don't have the time to test those, or if you're always going into another race or into another venue, it's hard to know whether or not one of those is going to be the best wax, or maybe you overlook it because you're just kind of keeping the same safe options that you've had for the last year. So that's where I see a lot of the development this summer and a lot of the testing going towards, is a lot of these new waxes, which has been super helpful for me to understand a bit more how to use them, when to use them, where to use them. But yeah, we're one of the few countries that don't have year-round employees on the tech staff. We're all seasonal contract employees. And you hear a lot of our friends, like from the Czech team, from the Norwegian team, from the German team, they're testing all summer. They're at the ski tunnels testing waxes. They're in the glaciers and testing skis, and they're up north testing grinds. And we're at home working on bike chains and bikes and going to gravel events. And it's a part of what we do, and we're definitely at a disadvantage. But I think this year going into it with a huge support from US Ski Team and from the donors, it will make a difference.
Yeah, well, I think I'm assuming I can speak for Gus in the sense that as an athlete, it's great to hear that, and it makes me feel really confident about the service you will provide this winter. And exciting to kind of hear about all of the innovative ideas. And I didn't realize that each year there were that many new waxes that would come to the market. So that is kind of wild to just think about how long it would take to get through testing all of those variations against each other and then also against what's already out there.
Yeah, it's been really challenging for the last 2 years, because when you have a new set of non-floral products come out, because it is brand new to the racing scene, everyone's trying to redo what they had originally came out with and find something better, or there's a new additive or a new type of wax. And so it's just like every step is moving further and further towards a different direction. And so it's always a lot of testing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I believe it. And we are appreciative of it because you guys make some fast skis in the winter. And I definitely want to kind of talk about the winter now a little bit and go back and talk about this past season. So it's super cool to have you both on this podcast at the same time because Checkers, you were wax teching for Gus as an individual. So for listeners, if you don't know, each athlete is assigned one tech. The tech works with typically the tech works with a male and a female athlete, but usually not more than that. So there's no one technician who is working with two female athletes. There are sometimes exceptions made to that rule, but it's really something that the team tries to follow so that the techs are not overwhelmed with service to a number of athletes who are all going out to start the same race at the same time. So it's cool to hear or just to have you both on the podcast and hear about how this past season went. Gus, had you ever worked with Checkers before this season? At like that type of level? Obviously, you guys are buddies, but has he ever been your technician?
He waxed for me in the Berkey.
Oh,
Is that
let's
the answer
go.
you're fishing for?
Honestly, no, I didn't even realize that.
Uh,
I love our full circle.
I feel like it fits pretty well with you guys being in Berkey land.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Berkey, and then I feel like there was at least one other race where you waxed for me when Carell was gone,
Yeah, I think we
like
had
in
one
the year,
race when
in
Carell
that
was
year,
sick.
or maybe the year before.
Yeah. So Carl was your previous wax technician, and then things worked out in the Berkey, so that was a good result for you, Gus. You won. Congrats. It was also the week after you won the Minneapolis World Cup, so clearly things were clicking for you, but clearly you also had good skis, so good job, Checkers. Well, it's fun that you guys came together then, and Checkers, you on top of being Gus's kind of point person, you're his technician all winter long. You are also the head of Glide. So can you explain for listeners, what does that mean? What does it mean to be head of Glide? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, head of Glide means that we kind of focus on all of the Glide products that come through the truck. So that's Swix Wax, Toco, Rex, Star, Start, Bounty, Maplus, Fast Wax. Any of the brands that you guys have seen, used, heard is what I'm in charge of trying to figure out what brand, what individual products are the fastest, and then trying to layer them properly. So there's infinite amounts of combinations of waxes and things that have been around for a super long time that can be fast, but also things that are brand new, a week old, that are test waxes coming from brands, and having to have an understanding of how those waxes work, what they are, and when we should try to use them. So that's one job, is being in touch with all of the wax brands at all times, trying everything new to old, to the kind of staple flagship products that you see inside of a shop. And then as well as kind of taking care of Gus's ski fleet at a more personal level for him and I to work together on getting our skis for the right conditions.
Mm-hmm. And so, as head of Glide, how do you specifically work with those industries? You mentioned many different wax industries. What's the relationship like? Are any of those industry members, are they like, hey, we're going to work with the US ski team and not the Finnish team? Or is it just like industry works with every team equally? Are there favorites? Or like, how do you build a relationship with the industry representative, and how do those kind of conversations throughout the season look?
Yeah, I mean,
Give us the gossip.
we have real give us the gossip. We have brands that we work with on developing new products for them. So that would be, I don't want to explicitly say which brands we work with. Outside of Swix, our main sponsor, they are one of our primary brands that we work with. They're really good at they're open to our suggestions. When we want a product or we want to make a product, they'll do their best to make a product for us. So my previous experience was the head of R&D with Rex Ski Wax before the US ski team. I was with them for 3.5, 4 years before coming on to the US ski team. So I have a pretty good knowledge of the chemistry and the paraffins behind a lot of the waxes that we were using. And so we work with some of the other brands, and I don't give out the like exact recipe side of things, but we can kind of hint about making something a wax that's a little bit harder, or putting in some different additives that might work or might not work into some waxes. So we work with a number of different brands, Swix being our closest partner. And one of the waxes that we developed with them, which would have been for the very first year, so 2 years ago, that is getting released to shops this year, is the Marathon liquid. That was something that our team invented with the help of Swix, and I went to them and said, hey, we want to have this product with this solvent. Can you make it for us? Can you try it? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's try it. We ended up racing on it that first year for a good portion of the first period. That was also a product that we had used at the Minneapolis World Cup, where Gus had won. So it's been a really good relationship where we've had that product for a full year before any other team was able to get that product. So it's the small relationships like that with Swix. We have that with a few other brands as well, where we have an exclusivity with them. They develop some products, and a year or two later, they'll come out and say, this product is now for sale to everyone at a retail level or at a World Cup level. So I'm positive we are not the only ones to have those relationships with some of those brands. There are other teams that also have exclusive relationships with brands, having exclusive products, especially going into an Olympic year. I already know that there's some products out there that are exclusive for the Olympics that I can't get. And so it is kind of a hard thing where you have to have good relationships with people and continue to develop and give brands feedback, because that's their ultimate goal, is to find a product that works well.
Right.
And it's our goal to find a product that works well. And so we can help each other by developing products through the brand, giving them honest feedback rather than just saying, this product's good, this product's good, this product's good. We have to tell them, like, hey, this product wasn't that good, but let's maybe try the next one that you have. So with my time in the industry, I've gotten to know a lot of the people very closely and personally. So it's been a fun 4 or 5 years with the US ski team, being able to talk to them from a different aspect as a wax tech versus a fellow industry research and development person. But yeah, it's a big part of of what we do is having close personal relationships and giving them feedback and suggesting what to use or how to use it. And hopefully
Yeah.
we stumble upon a couple of good products together.
Yeah. Chris, if you could give like a rough estimate, how many of the waxes that are being used in the wax track or kind of on the World Cup level, how many of those waxes can you actually find in your local ski shop?
80%.
Okay.
There's a really
So that's
good
most of
portion
them
that are
you so far.
now, yeah. There's a good portion that are now available to everyone. The very first year that we were using non-florals on the World Cup, I would say maybe 30% of what you could buy in the store is what we were using. Our team the US ski team has helped develop and invent a handful of products from Swix and a couple of products from Star and a couple of products from Rex. And those were some of the like exclusive side of things that we had requested or have been testing and then soon got released. So I'd say there's probably been about 12 to 15 products that the US ski team has helped invent and produce for brands.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. You guys are
Yeah.
obviously doing some cutting edge, innovative design with the waxes that you're doing, and you're mixing up in the back of the truck. So, pretty cool to hear about that. I want to kind of switch gears now and talk about skis specifically. So, Gus, you ski for Rosignol. You've been on Rosignol for a really long time. Has it really been kind of your entire junior into professional career you've been with Rosignol?
Yeah, my like junior club was had a relationship with Rosignol, so our coach was like encouraged that. So a lot of like the skis that I bought when I was younger were Rossi, and then started getting deals as a U16 and never looked
Mhm.
back.
Yeah. And I mean, as cross country skiers, we have many different skis to test for each condition that we're in. We have skate and classic. Obviously, this adds up to be a lot of skis. So we call it a ski fleet, right? And so we're traveling throughout the world with multiple bags of skis. Um, when it works out logistically, it's great that most of these skis can just be put in the back of the US ski team wax truck and we don't have to travel or fly with any of the skis. But for folks who are maybe going from the US to Europe and back multiple times a season, sometimes they have to travel with two ski bags, and that's their entire ski fleet. So, Gus, I'm curious. Do you know how big your fleet is? Have you ever counted your skis? Do you just leave that to checkers and you're like, I don't even know what skis I have. They're just in the truck.
I pretty much just leave it to checkers, but uh, I think it's in the 30 to 35 range. He can
47.
move his head if I'm 47. All
47.
right, so I was wrong. That doesn't count like the ones that I have over here too. Uh, but yeah, we're like, I don't know. Yeah, there's like a ski for everything, and you can just go finer and finer and finer. But I think
Mhm.
a lot of the a lot of our techs, partly we're limited by space in the truck. Uh, but I think I appreciate the philosophy of like, you can overcomplicate it. And like, if you always have to test 8 skis because you have 8 skis that are for 23 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit with snow that's 3 days old, and you're between latitudes of 61 and 61 and a half, like you can just make it way too hard on yourself. So I think like we try to like get rid of the skis that aren't winning tests, and maybe those skis once in a while would be super good, but the amount of work it takes to find that, you're probably more likely to accidentally pick a ski that's not as good or not as reliable. Maybe it's good for like a split second in your testing window, and then 2 hours later it warms up a little bit and all of a sudden it's out of its niche. I think we try to find skis that have a little bit bigger ranges and can take some change in condition because we're an outdoor sport. It's like conditions are changing a lot. But yeah, honestly, I don't like put a ton of thought into it. I really try to like think about how we can test and like ideas of like make sure we're thinking about everything. But on the
Yeah.
like management side of things, I would prefer to leave that to a tech who is thinking about it even more.
Yeah. And when you are kind of looking at your skis, like, do you recognize your skis when you're testing them? You're like, oh, I know this ski has this serial number, or I've named it this ski because it's worked for me in the past. Can you clearly recognize and identify all of the skis and kind of what grind it is? Or are you kind of going into it like, this ski feels fast, I'll go with this ski, right? How much do you know about your own fleet versus um, you're kind of just like, this one feels fast, so let's do it.
Yeah, there's a few ringers that I know for sure, but there's enough turnover in kind of like the middle of the pack that there's often skis that I have never seen before, don't really remember because I haven't been on them more than probably a few seconds even.
Yeah.
And I think it's honestly probably good like that way too, so that when we're testing it is more about feel and not more about like, oh, like this ski is really good, so I should pick it. Or like, if Hecker knows the answer to a test and he's kind of quizzing me, and
Yeah.
there's one ski that's like always really good, and then there's another ski, and there's kind of like the psychology of like, oh, is it the ski that's always good, or could it be? Is he kind of like doing a little reverse on me, trying to trick me?
So do you Gus, do you go into the test, like if you're testing a ski or maybe a couple skis, do you go into it completely blind? Like do you even know the serial numbers or like what skis what, or you just like you don't even see it and it's full blind?
Yeah, I can see the top sheet.
Okay.
No, it's not full blind.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I'll like look at them and kind of like note the grinds in my head
Yeah.
and the serial number if I recognize it. And some of them are from a race that I remember and they've been good. But yeah, I try to not put too much stock into it. But I do try to like generally understand like what the grinds are for, like where they excel, where they might be weaker, and because Hacker's got a lot of other stuff on his plate too. So like sometimes I think as long as I know like kind of the basics and where we're going, what the conditions are like, how it compares to like other days that we've done tests, I think two heads are better than one sometimes. So
Yeah. One
yeah,
thing
I think
that
that can be helpful.
Yeah, one thing that I worked with Bernie Nelson a lot this past season on the World Cup. She was my technician, and sometimes we would get, pre-race. It's the morning of the race. We have to pick out a winner, and to me, it's a tie. Like I cannot tell the difference. They're pretty much even in a glide out. When I ski them around up a hill, around a corner, they feel very even to me, and I I really cannot pick one. Bernie can't necessarily pick one, or maybe she can, but she wants me to be the one who decides. Um, or maybe we start having conversations about the grinds, like, well, this grind should be performing well in this, but it's not outperforming the other ones, or this one has a ski flex of such and such, and so I feel like that could be better on the uphill. There's so many details that kind of go into considering which pair of skis you actually race on. And so one thing that Bernie and I started doing was if I got down to two pair, I would turn around, she would take the two, like an individual of each ski, and she'd kind of like move them around. So then I didn't know which one was in which hand. And then she would come up next to me and she would click my toe into the binding. And I'm not looking at the ski. I'm not allowed to look down. I can only look forward. And I go ski a lap, maybe like 1 kilometer or something. And in that time, I have to pick, is it my right foot or is it my left foot? I'm not allowed to look down at all, completely blind. And sometimes it's so hard to figure out, is it my right foot or is it my left foot? But I'm curious, have you guys ever had to get to that point where you're just like, it is a dead tie and, both are going to be great, or, they're essentially the same, but we got to pick one. How do you handle a tie like that?
We do that sometimes. The blind. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't, and a lot of the time I'll just be like, ah, what do you think? And we'll go based on like what should be better and what will be better as the conditions, warm or cool or snow or get skied in, and just make a judgment call. We
I think
definitely do like binding testing.
the on snow, like on course glide outs, is kind of how Gus and I have typically broken ties between stuff. So we'll just go somewhere totally different from where we pre-tested the skis or had been skiing that's still on the course, and we'll just use that as our factor. So like in Falun, when Gus was second, we went to the far corner of the course that neither him nor I had skied, and it was different from the testing depot or testing area that had maybe been skied in 100 times. And this section maybe had been skied in 2 or 3 times, and one pair ended up being a half a ski length faster in that section, and that was kind of our deciding factor of why we picked one ski over the other. But that's
Hmm.
if we get to a really close section where we can't decide the feeling difference, we'll just go to a different section of the course that maybe neither of us have been on that day and go test over there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you brought up Falun. I want to talk about it. Gus, you were second in the 20K mass start in Falun this last winter. It was almost, was it a year to date of your Minneapolis win?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, essentially 365 days after you won the World Cup in Minneapolis, you were second in Falun. You can't do that without good skis. So clearly something worked that week. I kind of want to get Checkers your perspective going into that week. How did you, in any World Cup week, how do you approach testing throughout the week? Say it's Tuesday or Wednesday morning, the first race is on Friday or Saturday. How much are you looking at Gus's fleet already and you're already testing things? And how are you narrowing it down to a reasonable selection of skis that you and Gus could go test?
Yeah, it's obviously it's always super like forecast dependent. Uh, Ideally, we can start testing on Wednesday or Thursday of the week leading up to a race weekend. But if the conditions are going to go from, let's say, +5 Celsius to -15 Celsius by race day, there's not a whole lot of testing we can do. So we have to be
Mm-hmm.
reasonable with ourselves on Wednesday and Thursday of if the conditions aren't right, maybe we go out and bring some different skis to just learn about the condition, but we don't use that test as much for the race day. And then we kind of reset when it gets to a Friday or Saturday for the races. But specifically going into Falun, I remember the week being pretty consistent and we were able to test from like a Tuesday or Wednesday when we arrived all the way through to the end on Sunday with the same conditions. So we were able to get skis out on snow almost every day, whether or not the athletes were there, or if you guys were just maybe doing a strength day, we were still able to put 4 to 8 pair of skis per athlete on snow.
And so, if conditions are kind of looking like they're aligned, are you testing every single day? Are you testing the same 4 to 8 pairs of skis, or are you rotating things throughout that cycle?
We're typically testing anywhere between 12 and 15 pair of skis throughout that week, um, kind of rotating some in, rotating some out, and then trying to learn a little bit about some of the new skis or the prototype skis as we're going along. So we definitely have like a bunch of prototype skis from Rosignol that we always have in the test to get some information from. But also it comes back to that whole industry or relationship. They want to get some feedback on their new skis as well. So trying to test those
Mm-hmm.
skis and work with them as the brand and try to help develop and work through some of their new product.
Mm-hmm. And Gus, in the week leading up to a World Cup, say it's Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday of the week, and you're going out for a ski, are you testing any of these skis, or are you kind of just taking your trainers and you're going to go off and do your thing and you're not even worried about it?
Once in a while, we'll do a quick test that involves me, but
Hmm.
a lot of the time I do just sort of bop off and train. Like in terms of like for me of it's a pretty long season and like the more I can feel sort of distant from racing and World Cup in the like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, I think the easier it is for me to like bring a lot of intensity to race days. And so yeah, when there's a good testing opportunity, like in Engadine we had a zeros day that was Monday after the race weekend. That's exciting to me to like get on some skis and do something that we wouldn't normally be able to do
Hmm.
test wise. And obviously, like if Hacker ever needs my help and I'm going to contribute to testing, I'll gladly do it just because I understand like how important it is. But it's also, I think, nice for me to step away from that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so then checkers, if you can recall going back to Falun, the day of the 20K, this is very specific, but you clearly you had two hats to wear that day. You were head of Glide and you were head of Gus's skis. So what did that day look like for you? Going like starting from the beginning, how many tests were you out doing that were specific to Glide, and how many tests were you out doing that were specific to Gus's ski fleet? Can you walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah, I think that weekend I also was helping Julia since Eli was out of town. Um, he was still back home, so we had Julia's skis that day as well. Um, so it was complicated. We had on the glide side of things, we had 8 structure skis. We had 8 paraffin skis, 8 topping skis, 8 application skis, 8 of Gus's skis, 8 of Julia's skis that all needed to get tested. Uh, so 48 pair of skis, uh, roughly between those two jobs that all need to get tested for an individual day. And they don't all
Yeah.
get tested at the same time. Like obviously it's not feasible for us to get 48 pairs of skis all done just for 2 athletes when there's 16 athletes racing that day. So
Hmm.
what we do is we typically test the glide products. So we have the 32 pair of glide products divided between 8 techs, and those get done about 2 hours before athletes show up. Then we go test the athlete skis about an hour before they show up. Then we retest the glide products maybe a half an hour, 15 minutes before you guys show up. And then we retest your skis with you when you show up. So it's kind of this
Hmm.
process of like narrow some stuff down, but don't assume that it's going to be the best when the time comes, and then retest a few of those products. And maybe there's something that got eliminated right away in the morning, and you're like, that should get better as the day goes on. We'll probably still test that thing. So there's times where
Yeah.
we're shooting for the sun coming out and the snow kind of warming up and getting a little bit more wet. And so we're using the baseline knowledge that we had already collected from that morning, that initial morning test. And then we're using our knowledge from previous years and previous days with the skis or with the waxes. And then when we come back in to retest, it's maybe going from 4 down to 1. And then we'll take that best pair of
Hmm.
skis and we'll put exactly the waxes that we tested in the order with the hand structure and run it down to the start about 5 minutes before you guys um, get to say go.
Yeah, the best is when you know, athletes are putting on their bib, getting their last bit of fuel or drink from, and we're at kind of like the wax tech or the wax truck area or something, And then, we're soon going to make our way over to the start. And I just see Checkers is lacing up in tennis shoes. He's no longer in his ski boots testing. He's getting ready to make the sprint from the wax truck to the start line in order to make it in time for the 4.0 testing, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, now it's 10 minutes before the start. Your skis have to be checked in. And is that correct? 5 minutes before the start?
5
Okay.
minutes.
And sometimes you guys are cutting it a little close, but Checkers has his running shoes on, and sometimes these sprints are very far. So I don't know, what's the longest or furthest you've sprinted to get skis from the truck to the start area? Is it Davos? Is that the longest trek? It's got
I
to be like a
think
mile.
Davos is the longest. Yeah,
Yeah, but have you sprinted Davos?
I have sprinted Davos.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
we were
Falloon is
really,
pretty long too,
really
though.
close. Falloon is
Yeah.
downhill though, which is nice, and it's not at
Yeah,
altitude.
And
yeah.
Davos
you're
is
like kind of running.
semi uphill.
Yeah. And in Davos, you're running like through snow. Like it's not like a nice side. Like I feel like in Falloon, they have like the sidewalk cleared or something, and you're like running on pavement, or maybe it's even ice or something that has gravel on it. So there's a little bit of grippiness. But I feel like in Davos, you're like running and just like your foot is scooting backwards as you're sprinting through the fluffy snow. I've seen some epic moments there.
I think to this day, the toughest run to the start is still Valmuster. I don't know if either one of you guys have remember it or have raced there, but they put the trucks at the very bottom of the hill, and it's probably a K to a K and a half uphill. And I remember one tour to ski, we had Liz as the Trail to Gold fellow in the truck, and she was running up a pair of skis to the start, and then she was running about halfway back down to collect skis from some of the guys who were just so tired from testing that day. And I remember one of our guys, I don't want to call him out, but had some asthma problems halfway up. And Liz grabbed the skis and just took off. Like it wasn't even a second question. So that's definitely one of the places in my mind that I remember, like asthma, cramps while running.
Oh,
That was a tough place to run skis to the start.
yeah. Okay, well, Checkers, that's going to be practice tomorrow when we're doing this 5K race in Hayward. You can just think of sprinting to the start of the race in Davos or in Valmuster, and that's going to get you to the end. Of
Just
the
be
5K.
ready for the first first 1K tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope to see the same speed and enthusiasm. Okay, I just have a few more questions for you both. I want to get, Gus, your perspective from Falloon. So clearly it was a good day, and I'm curious, when you started the race and you immediately kind of took those initial pushes on your skis, could you tell, like, hey, these skis feel pretty good? I've got some energy today for this.
Yeah, at the beginning, I feel like it's a little hard to think about that because it's, you're thinking about everyone around you, the mass start. But I feel like I want to explain this in a way for people. Well, probably not that many people have been to Falloon, but like it starts, it's pretty gradual uphill. It's a little wider and then it narrows out. And after we got through like the narrow choke point, it calms down a little bit because that's sort of where it's like the most strung out. And it felt easy to follow people. And then, yeah, like the first time coming down from the high point, there's like a long kind of glide out. And, I always try to ski the downhills really well. And I feel like I tuck well and am sort of just like always looking for where I can go forward. And it was just like coming super easily, like just skiing through the pack. And yeah, pretty quickly I knew like I was on really good skis. And then as it went through, like they just kept being really good. And as I was getting more tired and the race was thinning out, I was able to use them to like ski slower up the uphills and ski into a good spot on the downhill. So yeah, it was like very helpful for keeping energy and speed for the last K or whatever, the last push.
Yeah, for sure. And Checkers, when you were on the sideline kind of watching this race unfold, uh, could you see it? Like, could you see, okay, these skis are running really well? I mean, obviously, Gus is an incredible athlete and he was making the skis go fast. But again, there are so many variables that go into a ski race that uh, the wax, the grind, the skis, like that's a huge part of what comes into a podium on the World Cup.
I think in Falun, it, it was really hard to see whether or not it was the skis or whether it was Gus. Honestly, that happens more frequently than you think because he makes the skis look good even when they're not. Um, and so that's like a really hard thing at times as a wax tech to know whether or not it was just he pushed really hard and well over the top or had a good draft, or if the skis were actually that good. And Falun is one of the hardest places to see it because the frankly the television is kind of terrible,
Mm.
especially out of some of the downhills. But there was a couple of sections coming into the flat, like almost exactly where Gus and I had talked, like what we talked about earlier, where we glided out, where he was just like still sitting in a tuck, still sitting in a tuck. I'm like, all right, he's either skiing super well, or the skis are good, or it's a little bit of both. And so it was
Yeah.
it was cool to see Gus get a second place, and obviously it's a little bit of both working together. But then to see it happen again in the women's race with Jesse winning, Julia, I think sixth place or fifth place on the day. So it was like overall pretty good weekend and just individually a good day for us as tech staff and athletes. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, in Ruka last year we had Gus and Zandon in the front group, and they both made the skis look really good. And so it's one of those like,
Yeah.
was it the athlete? Was it the ski side of things? And so it's happened more than just in Falun, where I'm like, I don't know if the skis are good, but they're not bad.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple like really crazy glide outs in Falloon though. Like I feel like when I got back to the truck, I was like, "Damn, those skis were good," and you were like, "Yeah, like,
That was
feeling
pretty
good
sweet.
about that one." Which like you deserve a pat on the back for sure. And I like always, that's definitely like a mentality of mine, especially after like you have some like tough ski days here and there, and sometimes it can be hard when it feels like other people like don't have that, but I definitely, in my head, make it a goal to make the skis look good, no matter how they are. Like, because it's easy, I think, for people to notice pretty quickly, like, oh, my skis aren't as good as the people around me, and then sort of give up in a way and be like, well, I'm losing this downhill anyway because I'm slower. But especially when it's technical, like, it often doesn't matter that much. And Falloon has some pretty big glide outs that are just straight, but it also has some spots that are like curvy. And if you line up behind someone and take a wide line and push well, and Rosy edges are good, so like that day was hard too, and like it allows for aggressive cornering, like all of that really adds up. And uh I think it makes it so you don't have to be like, are my skis good? Yes, okay, it's going to be a good day. Are my skis good? No, okay, it's going to be a bad day. Like there's more to it than that. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think, yeah, it's easy to blame everything on the tech, but I don't think that's like the best way to go about life.
No, it's never one person's fault or one variable. There are, again, so many variables that go into a race, but it's really amazing when all of those variables come together and fit so perfectly into one day. And you get a World Cup podium. So that's super exciting. And I for sure remember watching, I was getting ready to go out and race the 20K because the women went after. But we were watching it on TV in the hotel. And I remember, Gus, I can't remember which lap it was, but you were coming back into the stadium kind of on that last sprint downhill. And everyone else, everyone's in a tuck, but then everyone gets out of their tuck to start either tuck skating or to start getting going again to kind of come up and over the um, through the stadium, and you just hung out in your tuck like for twice as long as everyone else, and you just kind of like kept going around people. And I just remember it so distinctively that I was with the other girls and we we're all like, oh, skis are good. These are, this is a good sign for us, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how much difference that makes. Like obviously it sounds great, but like when you take okay, like I moved up a bunch of spots, that's cool. But then I also like didn't have to get out of my tuck, right? So like then you're not skiing for an extra 10 seconds, you get extra
Yeah,
rest and you got extra rest because you didn't ski as hard everywhere else and like it all like kind of compounds on each other. So
absolutely.
like it ends up magnifying in a way that like isn't just like my skis are X% faster, so my time is X% faster.
Yeah.
Or like because well we talked about like how you ski matters too, but if you just think about like ski speed, there's a lot of like benefits you get from going faster.
Yeah, it compounds on top of itself and it
For
definitely
sure.
adds up to give yourself enough energy for a pretty epic sprint then, which was cool to see. Um, okay, last few questions. Gus, aside from Falloon, is there a race or a place in particular that you can remember where you just had the most fantastic skis ever and you're like, these are epic?
That's a good question. I'm
I
going
can
back.
answer this one
Actually,
too.
Okay,
I
fire
wonder
away.
if it's gonna be the same one, but the Oslo Classic individual start, is that what you're thinking?
I was thinking the
Yeah.
Lillehammer skiathlon.
Mm.
Yeah, that was good too. Those classic skis were really good. I guess it's easy to forget the first leg of a skiathlon, and I didn't make it that far back in my files before I found a good one. But yeah, the Oslo individual start was like really pretty easy kicking for the conditions. It was kind of weird because it was like Oslo has a lot of south aspect hills and every other aspect downhills and flats. So like the hills get all soft and warm. So you need a warm wax, but then it's cold everywhere else. And I feel like you guys kind of nailed it that day where like the kicking was pretty easy and there wasn't drag and it was gliding well. And I remember like that was a potentially incredibly hard race and having good skis made it easy to just ski relaxed for as long as possible.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
I kind of forgot about the Oslo race.
There's a lot of races.
Yeah. Uh, Checkers, I want to ask you kind of the reverse question. So I think I can guess this, but maybe I'm wrong. And I want you to think of like in your entire waxing history, where was it the trickiest waxing conditions that you've ever faced and like the most frustrating?
I have three,
Okay, you can
and I
share all
think about
three.
them almost. The first one was with KO at Oberstdorf World Champs, 30K. We went out. We had four
Hmm.
pair of skis, and they were ice skates. And I came back
Oh,
in, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I mean, it was like
oh,
30K classic with some of the hardest climbing that we've ever had to do. Came back in, I was like, I got nothing. I don't know what to do, and I had to put three pair of skis, one for the or two for the exchange and one for the race for her to go on to. And I just remember her going out in first lap in, she had to switch skis, and the skis that she switched to also didn't have much kick. So that was a brutal, brutal day. Um, Still
yeah.
feel bad about that one. But then the next year, she qualified for her first ever World Cup sprint at the Tour de Ski and was like 19th um, in Oberstdorf in a classic race. So we kind of got some redemption at
Hmm.
that World Champs or at the Tour de Ski after the World Champs. Second one, Engadine skate race this year in
Yeah.
the mass start for the men, the point to point. That was honestly that was probably one of the weirdest
Yeah.
conditions race days that I've been at, and I know Trondheim was weird, but this one was like 32 degrees Fahrenheit, sun coming out, rain coming down, and we had two options on the wax side of things. And so we were like, it was going to be, we had a warm option for wax and we had a cold option for wax, and they were both tied. And so we're like, the sun's coming out, it's raining, I don't know what's going on here. The lake has water coming up from it. So we're like, all right, cool, let's go for the warm option. Obvious, right? Last time I was in Engadine, it got sunny out. The course got super glazy. It got slushy. It broke down super fast. We ended up going with, this was the very first time during COVID that they had it in Engadine. We ended up going with the cold option there, regretted it. This year, we ended up going with the warm option because I was like, been there, done that. I know how Engadine works. It gets wetter as the sun comes out. It happened to be in January, the sun came out and everything dried out. And we're like, so got bitten twice in Engadine. But this year Engadine race was in January. The last time we were in Engadine was in March. And so the sun angles hitting the snow, two totally different things. March sun hitting snow at altitude is going to make things wet, whereas January sun hitting snow at a different angle isn't going to change the snow. It's actually going to dry it out and make it a little bit more cold and styrofoamy, which is, it's a learning point from that valley in Switzerland. So it was just, it's one of those things where you think you aim to be the best every single day, but there's some times where you're at new venues or at venues that you haven't waxed at that you learn things. And it's that type of thing where in Engadine, we tried to learn something the first time we were there 4 years ago, and we tried to apply that knowledge now, and it's just a different time of the year, different month. And I know that, I know that we missed it that day and we should have went with the other option, but in hindsight, I would have done the same thing again. And I don't think it was a ski issue, because if it was, somebody else would have had good skis. I mean, we have 8 other techs that are really good at their jobs, and all 8 people didn't have great skis that day. So I think it is more of a wax thing on that given day. And then obviously the third one was Trondheim. It's just, you have whatever 13, 14 days of waxing, and every day is different, and it's either rain or sun or snow or ice. And we've been to Trondheim twice in my tenure at the US ski team, and never once has it been the same twice. So it's hard to use previous knowledge when you're there. And this was a slugfest of a race, and it was kind of a stab in the dark from us as a tech side of things, because they went out and groomed 45 minutes to the start and changed everything again. So whatever we had tested that day was totally obsolete, and you just kind of had to use knowledge and guess. And unfortunately, it sounds like we guessed wrong.
You did everything you could, though.
Well, to be fair, the comparisons are hard, like if you guessed and you just went out skiing, you would feel like you guessed right, but you also guessed against the people who have seen that exact thing, like people that are living there and just like more exposure to it. Like this bar is really high, and the people that we're up against are doing all of this and plus budget and plus summer training and plus location, like all of our upbringings and experience, techs and athletes are in the US, and the World Cup is not in the US primarily. So there's definitely some difference there.
I think one of the big things from this season specifically that I had noticed just objectively is that there were teams, when they had good skis, they had really good skis. And we were one of those teams for several races. And I think that aspect of it makes it feel like you guys maybe had bad skis for a certain day, but that's partially because some of the teams had really, really good skis. And when another team has really good skis, it can feel like you guys maybe had bad skis. And so that's like that's a really hard thing to justify sometimes, is when somebody does a good job, because we can't have the best skis every single race of every single year. I wish we could. That'd be awesome. But everyone's competing to do the same thing, and there's Team Norway and Sweden and Finland and a lot of other people with really, really highly educated and skilled techs, and we're bound to get beat every now and then. It's just mostly trying to stay on the above average side of things with the occasional Falun day or the occasional Ruka day or the occasional um, you name your good fun races day. But it's trying to eliminate the Konya or the Engadine days or the Trondheim days and make your baseline a bit more stable is kind of what we're aiming for.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with these on snow tech camps this summer, there will be kind of a raise in that baseline, and I'm sure that the work will be worth it, and that I'm excited to hear and see what you guys discover through all this testing. I'm curious, do you know if you two are working together again this coming year?
Hope so.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Are there any changes that will be happening?
Chris Grover didn't pull a fast one.
Yeah, who knows?
Not yet, at least. As far as tech assignments, we don't know. We need to figure out what the period 1 nominations are, and then that's how we kind of come together as a team. So predominantly it's the Jason, Chris, myself, Oleg, working together as a team of 4 to figure out the proper tech assignments. And we tend to try to get people that have worked together in the past together as much as we can throughout the season. It builds a chemistry, it builds continuity between your ski fleet and your tech, and it ultimately gives you guys the best option or best opportunity to excel. And so the nominations, I think, happen sometime this month. Maybe you guys know more than I do about the days, but I'm pretty sure it's any day now that they're going to have their the club teams and the US ski team staff come together for their nomination meeting here in July.
Yeah, the stuff is nominated. I think people just need to accept, before it comes out.
So
I think we'll have tech assignments around the door.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I am so appreciative of you both joining me today on this episode. It's been really fun to kind of just catch up with you both about how the summer has been on snow, and also to just kind of reflect on how this past season went. I feel like when I was kind of preparing for this episode and writing some of my questions, it got me really excited about the winter and getting back to racing scene, which I feel like for mid-July is actually saying a lot, because usually I'm pretty happy in summer mode when it's summertime, but it was nice to have just like a little reminder that what we're doing now is going to pay off in the winter. Hopefully we won't be doing these running workouts in mid-January or February, but they're fun to kind of test the body for now. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. Gus, I hope you recover from your bike race and your track intervals well. Checkers, I will see you tomorrow for this 5K, and I'm excited to throw it down.
Yeah.
Good luck, you two.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this episode of Extra Blue, powered by Gear West. It's been fun to dive back into podcast recording and sharing conversations with you all. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode, then please consider giving it a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you are interested in watching these conversations, then don't forget you can now view these episodes on Gear West YouTube page. Just go to youtube.com/gearwest/podcast to follow along. In the meantime, I hope you're all staying cool during these hot summer months, and I look forward to catching up with you again in a few weeks.